Our political editor, Beth Rigby, was in the room for the Labour leader's speech in Bristol. Joins me now. Morning to you, Beth. The Labour Party, and particularly Sir Keir Starmer, are often accused of not making it really clear what the party stands for. Did this speech do much to correct that?
Morning. Well, look, I think the first thing I would say is that in the first year of January, you often hear from both party leaders, the Conservative leader, Rishi Sunak, and Keir Starmer, the Labour leader. But this year, the election year, it's Keir Starmer that has made the first big pitch of 2024 to voters. And I think there were two elements to that. One was the way in which he sought to draw dividing lines between him and the Conservatives going into the election. There was rhetorical flourish throughout that speech on these dividing lines, be it, as he described it, the self-serving Conservatives to Labour, the party of service. He talked about the miserabilism of the Tory government opposed to his Hope project, and he mentioned hope 18 times in that speech. He talked about the politics of division versus the politics of coming together that he says Labour want to sell to the public this year. So in terms of framing, he was very clear about Labour being a party of change. But I think where he begins to come unstuck is on the nuts and bolts of what he's actually offering, because when you drill down into what Labour is proposing as a government, it's quite clear that he is telling voters that in terms of public spending, there won't be much money to invest. He made a big speech about that last November. And then in terms of tax cuts or lifting taxes, asked time and again in that speech, in the Q&A rather afterwards, he just won't answer the question. And I put it to him in that Q&A that beyond the rhetoric, in terms of the nuts and bolts, he's following the Conservatives on taxes. He is not committing to public spending, and also his big green investment programme. Remember the 28 billion a year. It's not really clear whether he's going to fully commit to that either. I put it to him that while he talks about change, it all looks rather the same as the Conservatives, and this was his answer.
The idea that there's no change, the highest sustained growth in the G7 felt with living standards improved across the whole of the country. That's huge. Nobody says to me that that's a minor difference. It's a huge, huge difference. Clean power by 2030. There'll be lower bills, energy security, the next generation of jobs. Nobody says to me that's no different to the Tories. They say, how are you going to achieve it? When we say we want safer streets, within which we are committing to halving violence against women and girls. No government or opposition has ever committed to that before. And I know from my work as Chief Prosecutor just how hard that is. Nobody says to me that's no difference. If it's the opportunities that our children need, the skills they need, nobody says that's no different. And whether it's the NHS that is, not just on its knees, on its face at the moment, being picked up and made fit for the future. Nobody says to me that's no different. These are huge, fundamental differences.
Keir Starmer, they're picking up some of the policies that Labour have announced, and there are some differences, be it, say, their decision to tax VAT on private schools in order to funnel a bit more money into education. But on the really big themes of tax and spend, the things that we sometimes vote upon, there is simply no clarity yet from Labour as to what he intends to do should he become Prime Minister. And I think Keir Starmer is now 18 points still ahead in the polls, going to be facing more and more questions about the details of what does day one of a Labour government look like. He's making his pitch to the UK voters, but what they're going to want to see is some flesh on the bones to help them really decide.